Good evening, and welcome to the service of Tenebrae. Tenebrae is a Latin word that means shadows, and it's an ancient tradition on Maundy, Thursday, as we tell the story of Jesus' last few days to darken the sanctuary by extinguishing candles. We'll be doing that here tonight, and you can join us at home if you'd like to. You might gather candles or a single candle that you might extinguish at the end of tonight's service as you follow along. Or you could darken your lamps or lights as we go. Tonight is also the night that we remember that Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. This was the traditional way of showing great respect and great hospitality. The disciples protested, of course, because one who was greater, the host, would never do that. It would be the work of servants. But tonight, we were reminded that Jesus was a servant leader, a leader of those who knew how to serve others. The washing of hands, the washing of feet is particularly important right now. And so we can't do that as we might on a regular Maundy, Thursday, but you might find some way to express such tender service to your family members or to those around you. In addition, today, when you wash your hands next, perhaps before you go to bed tonight or after a gathering for a meal, remember that this is literally a life-saving act. It is literally service to others when we wash our hands to keep each other safe. Tonight we'll also be sharing communion. You may wish to follow at home as well by gathering something of those elements in your household. It could be a piece of bread and wine, as Jesus and his disciples used, or it could be something that you eat at any ordinary common meal. Jesus was always telling us, always hoping we would understand that the ordinary is where God dwells. In everyday things, there we find God. So whatever you have on hand right now can be a remembrance of that holy love. We'll be doing it here tonight with unleavened bread as we remember the deep and rich debt we owe to Jesus' Jewish faith. That long history of prophets, the long history of liberation and remembrance of God's good comes to us from our Jewish forebearers in faith. And this week, as we remember that they will soon be celebrating Passover, we certainly remember that Jesus was part of that tradition. We'll be using unleavened bread in honor of Jesus' heritage. Tonight, regardless of how you go, you'll be invited to simply sit in silence, to let the story wash over you. We'll be telling the story tonight from Matthew. And we'll be telling the story tonight from Matthew. And as we do, you'll simply see all of the story laid out before you in a way that is usually not possible in church settings. We're indebted to our musicians tonight who've worked very hard to provide special music between each reading. We've divided the readings into 12, and at the end of each one, we'll extinguish a candle. You'll be here with us as the light dims and the shadows lengthen. At the end of the service, it's traditional to be in silence and to be in darkness, to just allow the power of the story and the power of Christ's sacrificial love to wash over us. At your home, you could turn off the lights or blow out the candle that you're using and simply allow yourself to meditate on what you've heard. We wait, we watch, we pray. Thank you for joining us. Let us be at peace in this service and in this remembrance. So we begin our story. Reading tonight from the Gospel of Matthew, we remember that when Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and they conspired to arrest Jesus by stealth and to kill him. But they said, "Not during the festival, or there may be a riot among the people." Now, while Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very costly ointment, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when the disciples saw it, they were angry, and they said, "Why this waste? For this ointment could have been sold for a large sum of money, and the money given to the poor." But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She's performed a good service for me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. By pouring the ointment on my body, she has prepared me for burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever this good news is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will be told in remembrance of her." Then one of the 12, who was called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I betray him to you?" Well, they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. On the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Where do you want us to make the preparations for you to eat the Passover?" And he said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, 'The teacher says, my time is near. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus directed them, and they prepared the Passover meal. When it was evening, he took his place with the 12, and while they were eating, he said, "Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed, and they began to say to one another, "Well, surely not I, Lord." And he answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." And he replied, "You have said so." Now, while they were eating, Jesus took a loaf of bread. And after blessing it, he broke it, and he gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat. This is my body." And then he took a cup. And after giving thanks, he gave it to them and said, Drink from it, all of you. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many and for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will never drink again of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." This was the first supper. That's how it was. They gathered around a table together. They broke the simple daily bread, and Jesus made it holy by reminding us that in this bread is the very body of all knowledge and hope contained in our Christian faith. Tonight, if you're watching at home and have bread with you, now is the moment. Give thanks for this bread. Give thanks for where it came from. Give thanks for those who grew the wheat and ground it, baked it, and brought it to you. Give thanks for what you drink. May the one be a reminder that we are ground together and bound by heat and trials of fire. May the other, the wine, the juice, remind us that we flow with joy and forgiveness even though we are sometimes crushed. Take, and eat. And when you eat, remember, this is the hope. This is the message. This is the night. Now, when they had eaten, and when they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives, and then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly, I tell you, this very night, Peter, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples. Then Jesus went out with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here a while I go over and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. And then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here. Stay awake with me." And going a little farther, he threw himself on the ground and he prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came to the disciples and he found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So could you not stay awake with me 1 hour? Stay awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit is indeed willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away for the second time and he prayed, "My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done." Again he came and he found them sleeping, for their eyes were so heavy. So leaving them again, he went away and prayed for the third time, saying the same words. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? See, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us be going. You see, my betrayer is at hand."
Caught in a storm, you've been battered and torn. Your survival will mean your revival. And when I saw your flag, it was only just a rag, and the boat that you were sailing on was leaving. It's a cold, bitter tide that's stolen your pride. You're the daughter of a violent water. And when I saw your hand, you were 1,000 miles from land, and the world that you were living in was sinking. Oh, come, you've been down so long, the current pulls so strong, this life that you've been leading. Oh, please, take this love from me, it's stronger than the sea, this love that you've been needing. Have I reached your heart in time to stop the bleeding? Time has led you away from the bright side of day, and if you follow your life, it's hollow. Say goodbye to the sea, share this love inside of me, and the warmth that it will bring will last forever. Oh, 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 come, you've been down so long, the current pulls so strong, this life that you've been leading. Oh, please, take this love from me, it's stronger than the sea, this love that you've been needing. Have I reached your heart in time to stop the bleeding? Have I reached your heart in time to stop the bleeding?
While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, and with him was a large crowd with swords and clubs from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. And Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came, and they laid hands on Jesus, and they arrested him. Suddenly, one of those with Jesus put his hand on his sword, and he drew it and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. And Jesus said to him, "Put up your sword and put back in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled, which say it must happen in this way?" At that hour, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you didn't arrest me. But all this has taken place so that the scriptures of the prophets may be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him, and they fled. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas the high priest, in whose house the scribes and the elders had gathered. But Peter was following him at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and going inside, he went with the guards in order to see how this would end. Now the chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus, that they might put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At last 2 came forward and said, "This fellow said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days.'" The high priest stood up and said, "Have you no answer? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you under oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so. But I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated on the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have now heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" And they answered, "He deserves death." Then they spat in his face and struck him, and some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy to us, you Messiah. Who is it that struck you?" Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." Oh, but he denied it before all of them, saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Then he went out to the porch, and another servant girl saw him, and she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, he denied it with an oath, "I do not know that man." And after a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, Peter, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out, and he wept bitterly. In a certain way, we're all Peter. We have all betrayed that which is our best version of our best self, the version that God yearns for. When we betray those loyalties that we've held so dear and learned that have given us strength, we end up, like Peter, vehemently denying the very things that would give us life. In Christian churches, we symbolize that on this night by stripping the altar of all the finery, of all the beauty, of all the things that we have most thought we treasured, because we remember that the things that we treasured in terms of who we love and how we show it are sometimes stripped from us by our poor actions. And so we symbolize that tonight. We take away the elements of communion, and we take away the brass and the gold and the finery, and we strip bare the space to remind us that we, by this night and by our betrayals and by our failures, are sometimes left bare in front of God. We are not left bereft. We are not unloved, but we have not been lovely. And so we remove these things. And we remember, too, that we also need the Easter to come. When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and he hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It's not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." And after conferring together, they used them to buy the potter's field as a place to bury foreigners. For this reason, that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one on whom a price had been set, on whom some of the people of Israel had set a price, and they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord commanded me, wrote Jeremiah. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, "Do you not hear how many accusations they make against you?" But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge. so that the governor was greatly amazed. Now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release for you? Jesus, Barabbas, or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting in judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Now the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and have Jesus killed. The governor said again to them, "Which of the two do you want me to release for you?" And they said, "Barabbas!" And Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus who is called the Messiah?" And all of them said, "Let him be crucified." Then he asked, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Let him be crucified." So then Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning. So he took some water and he washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." Then the people as a whole answered, "His blood be upon us and on our children." And so he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him, and they put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand, and they knelt before him, and they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him, and they took the reed and they struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they came upon a man from Cyrene named Simon. They compelled this man to carry his cross, and when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his clothes among themselves by casting lots. Then they sat down there and kept watch over him. Over his head they put a charge against him which read, "This is Jesus, King of the Jews." Then 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by derided him, shaking their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from his cross now, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he wants to. For he said, 'I am God's son.'" The bandits were crucified with him, and also taunted him in the same way. From noon on, darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m. And about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "This man is calling for Elijah." At once, one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put it on a stick and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come and save him." Then Jesus cried again with a loud voice and breathed his last. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and he asked for the body of Jesus, and then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. So Joseph took the body, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and laid it in its own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. Then he rolled a great stone to the door of the tomb, and he went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were there, sitting opposite the tomb.